Well, hey, folks, Jack here. Just getting set up for the podcast side of things and making sure that that's working and giving a bit of a stall as always for people to come on board. Today's subject is going to be really important if you are a cryptocurrency person, specifically in the world of Bitcoin and I would say eventually Ethereum here. I think those are going to be the two places that we're going to see the most action with opening up public investments through the form of ETFs in the coming months. And I think it is months we're talking. I think it is 85% probable that we will have a type of Bitcoin ETF before October ends. But it probably ain't what you're expecting. I've put my ear down on the railroad tracks. You know, if they tell you the train's coming in at 2:30 and it's 11 o'clock and you put your ear on the tracks and you hear rumbling, you're not sure exactly how how close that train is, but you know it's going to be there before 2 o'clock. And that's kind of where we're at with this. It's not the same thing that somebody's what the thing is, what the train looks like. But there's just some really obvious signaling going on right now to me that you're going to get it, but you ain't going to get what you expect to get. And there's a reason for it. As soon as you understand what it is and what they're sending, well, the reason becomes obvious. So we're going to dig into that today. I'm going to make sure that we are streaming on the other services, Odyssey and Float, in addition to YouTube. There I am on Float, so I know that's working. Hi, Float, folks. And it looks like we are live on Odyssey as well. Okay, so we have Odyssey and Float running. We are up to episode 165. Let's get the recorder going, and let's roll from there. Well, hi, folks. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 165. We only have 3 episodes this week because it's a short week because we had Monday off. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Bitcoin ETF fuckery. And that's the word that I'm using today because that's the word that it is, right? Some of you aren't as happy with me when I cuss as when I use other words, right? But this is fuckery that's going on. And it's been fuckery all year, and it will continue to be fuckery. And the greatest fuckery of all fuckery in the crypto space in relation to things like the SEC, the FTC, regulations, etc., is about to occur. And it's not the kind of thing that we've been led to believe we need to be afraid of, which is, oh, they're going to ban Bitcoin, or, oh, they're going to like KYC everything, including, you know, wallets that you can download from the internet that were developed in South America or something. Like, no, they're not going to put the kibosh on crypto, guys. And there is more regulation coming. But the billionaire class has made a decision. And it's not a decision that's hard to understand if you actually understand what Bitcoin is, what it does, the crypto space, the entire momentum and shift of both the technology that is money and the technology that controls and moves money. If you understand that, you know it's inevitable what these people do. If you look through history, what the billionaire class has always done when they've ended up on the wrong side of something and momentum is obvious, and there's no way to shift it, what do, guys? Come on, you know what they do. They co-opt it. They grab onto it. They harness it. And they use their superior ability. And when I say ability, I'm not talking about necessarily brains. I'm talking about to manipulate laws and regulations and to print money and to obtain money that you can't get your hands on, to stack the deck in their favor, so that when I say co-opt, I mean they try to benefit from it more than you. And I don't think there's ever been a time in history where the general, everyday, average person, because cryptocurrency came up completely devoid of any regulation. There's some regulation now, but it's still that anybody anywhere can basically make a cryptocurrency, and anybody anywhere can just buy cryptocurrency if they have some money. And anybody anywhere who has something of value to sell can say, I accept cryptocurrency. So there's been the biggest public front run of the multimillionaires, billionaire class that's occurred maybe ever in history. So they got front run. They don't like being front run, and they want in now, and they're slowly, methodically, quietly getting in. I've told you this before this year. There is immense amounts of institutional money coming into Bitcoin. Slowly, and when I say slowly, I mean the amount per day coming in is being very carefully throttled. And I think you need to understand how good these people are at financial projections and economic projections. I believe they're coordinating, which would be a violation of many laws. But since they write the laws don't apply to them. And they know exactly how much they can move in per day without having a dramatic impact on the cost. They're not being loud and boisterous about it. They're not talking about it. They're not putting out press releases. They're very quietly moving their pieces on the chessboard when it's not their turn, right? They're not letting you know, hey, we moved, now you can move. For every Michael Saylor, for every billionaire that has billions of his company's money and billions of his own money in Bitcoin, there are 20 or 30 others saying, Michael, shut up, shut up. Not yet, shut up. In fact, I think everything has been accelerated by people like Michael Saylor because he's not going to shut up. Now, why he's not going to shut up, I'm not sure. This could be the one monkey wrench, and it could be all a game, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so. There's too much on the line here. It's all leveraged with debt. It's all public. There's no way they did what they said they did and didn't do it. So I don't think Michael is on their side so much as he's on his own side, and he's decided to go his own way. I don't think he's doing it for you. And understand that. I think he's doing it for himself and for his shareholders. But I do think he's acting on his own self-interest, and he's basically decided to go off the reservation, and he's not going to shut up. So they had to accelerate everything. So what they're doing now, they are eventually going to approve a Bitcoin ETF and probably other crypto ETFs. I would think that an Ethereum ETF will be next, and a hybrid Bitcoin Ethereum ETF in one will be after that. And it's going to happen. And I said it's going to happen because it's, even though they make the rules, there's a certain level of, they kind of have to follow their own rules. And you can't go around and approve an initial public offering for a company like Coinbase, whose only business is cryptocurrency, and say it's okay for you to be a publicly traded stock. It's okay for anybody anywhere to buy stock in your company. Any American citizen can buy it. And it can be in a retirement account. It can be anywhere. A pension fund for teachers in Massachusetts can buy your stock. But we're not going to approve an exchange-traded fund for Bitcoin. There's a conflict of their own rules there. It's a glitch in the matrix that they can keep it running for a while, but eventually it has to be resolved. Because eventually some company somewhere will use their own shit to sue them and win if they don't. So what they do is they stall as long as they can. But here's the dirty, dirty little secret about what they're doing right now. The first Bitcoin ETF, and I'm about 95% this is going to happen now. And if it does happen, then everything else I say, I'm like 99.9% is going to happen, will not be what's called an ETF spot account. It will be an ETF futures fund. I'm sorry, an exchange traded fund that's based on Bitcoin futures, not spot Bitcoin. And I want to explain the difference between the two, and then I'm going to ask the people in the live stream a question about it. So an ETF that is a spot account would be like, I think SLV is a silver spot account. And all it means is you put money in, and you might as well have bought silver, right? And you might wonder, well, why would you do that? Well, if your money is in some sort of wrapped up institutional format for, let's say, again, a pension fund for teachers, you can't really buy silver bars. And while there is a such thing as a physical silver IRA, if you have an individual retirement account, then it's really clunky to do physical silver. It's just much easier to just buy SLV. And if you're going to trade, like not high frequency trading, but you're going to say in my retirement account, if there's some unusual, weird spike in an asset, and I have no tax consequences for selling because now it's deferred, I'll sell it, and when it comes back down, I'll buy it back. All right, that's spot trading. And it's what most people that start out doing their own investing and their own trading do. And if you get an account at the exchange, like Binance, Bittrex, CoinEx, etc., you'll see that there's options for spot accounts and different types of futures accounts where you can use leverage. Now, a futures ETF is an exchange traded fund that instead of like if I put $10 in Bitcoin, there's $10 or $10 in USD, there's $10 in Bitcoin at that point, and they try to maintain a lock. So if Bitcoin's at $54,000, one share of BTC ETF should be $54,000. That's spot. That means you're trying to lock the number, and then there's a fee for management, maybe 1% a year or something. That's how they make their money managing the fund. But basically, all it is somebody else buying it for you, and it opens up investment from funds that would be difficult or impossible to get into it otherwise. So again, if you're a pension fund manager for teachers in Florida, you can't go buy Bitcoin right now. The charter that you operate under says no, but you can buy ETFs and you can buy stocks. Okay, you understand? So now why? But if you're Margaret in Massachusetts and you have an IRA, there is a way to do custodial Bitcoin or non-custodial Bitcoin IRAs right now. It's complicated. Margaret in Massachusetts, Debbie in Des Moines doesn't know how to do it. And if you mess it up, if you're doing it for yourself, well, then the government comes in like grinds you to a pulp. And if you're paying somebody to do it right now, the ones that are custodial, it's expensive. Unless you're doing a lot of money, it's inherently expensive. So this is the why behind it. Now, the futures ETF is basically gambling. You can make money when Bitcoin goes up, and you can make money when Bitcoin goes down with futures. We're talking about puts and calls, shorts and longs. Most of you listening to me, you've heard of this, you kind of get it, but you probably are not familiar with it, and you're not comfortable with it, and you don't completely understand it. I bet you that you fully understand how it works if I buy a Bitcoin ETF that's one share to one Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doubles in price. Basically, my money doubles. But exactly how the futures work, unless you're a sophisticated investor, you don't. And if you're going to be going in and out of the fund inside some sort of tax-deferred status, right, and you're the only reason you would do it with an ETF is to get it into that tax-deferred status. Otherwise, you would just do it on your own, right? So this is a sophisticated investment vehicle for sophisticated investors that are already playing a different game. Now, it does open it up for a lot of the institutional money, pension fund managers, managers of investment charters for corporations, et cetera, that otherwise couldn't get in there. So their money can go in. And they can fuel and they can make that throttle. Now, again, what did I say? You can make money up and down. And you hear about these leverages and these future contracts running out, and you watch the swings in Bitcoin price at the end of the month when people close out those contracts. The more money that you can drag into that, right? The more money you can drag into that type of gambling, the more manipulation you can put on forcing the price down and forcing the price up. Now, there's a breakaway point with a limited commodity like Bitcoin. You can only do so much with it. And sooner or later, people leveraging can get it wrong and they can lose their ass. And if you're in one of these funds and you don't recognize the signals and you don't bail before it happens, when the fund loses its ass, so do you. Where if you had a spot account and then you just bought in with the money, and I understand self-custody, all that, but let's say you're Margaret in Montana, right? Debbie in Des Moines, Fred in Florida, whatever. Just the average person. And you want to get into the Bitcoin game. And you're like, you know what? I have $500,000 in net worth in retirement. I'll buy 10%, $50,000. I consider that my high risk capital with high potential return. Where are you getting the $50,000 from? Most Americans couldn't come up with it to buy one Bitcoin or a half a Bitcoin if it goes to 100 grand. They don't have it, but they do have it. Do you understand what I'm saying? The middle income American and above has a tremendous amount of wealth sitting in these retirement vehicles that they can't get at, that you have to be penalized to go get at. And they tell you what you're allowed to and not allowed to buy. So now all of a sudden these futures come out, and it's not that Debbie in Des Moines can't buy it. It's that Debbie in Des Moines or George in Georgia, as one of the people in the thing say, right? It's that they don't understand it, so they're not comfortable buying it. Now, what happens the second that the vaulted, SEC, federal, and the FTC, et cetera, and they all look at this and they say, we have blessed the Bitcoin ETF spot account. All these people that have all this money in all these, behind all these walls, get access to it. And they also understand it. Is there anyone listening to me in the live feed right now that doesn't understand what it means, now that I've explained it, to have a spot account ETF? Is there anybody confused by the fact that 1 share equals 1 unit? It could be 1 ounce of silver to 1 share, 1 ounce of gold to 1 share, 1 barrel of oil to 1 share. If there was a dog ETF, it could be 1 chihuahua to 1 share. It doesn't matter. That's what it is. Whatever the commodity unit security is on the other side, 1 share equals 1 unit. Really easy. And it's the safest form of an ETF. If you go to a brokerage account and you want to start buying stocks tomorrow in Exxon, and you go to E-Trade or Ameritrade or whatever, you open an account, you link your bank account, you wire in $100,000. They don't give a shit if you lose your ass. You can start buying and trading stocks in literal minutes in the United States of America as a completely uninformed idiot. When you start saying, I want to use some of that there margin, I want to start buying me some puts and calls, right? They say, hold on. You got to fill out some paperwork. They got to approve you, and they got to set you up so that if you lose their ass, they don't lose theirs. So it's straight out of the gate, just looking at it that way. It's much safer, even though there's higher return potential in an options market. It's much safer for the average person who's throwing in money every week, every month, like the financial advisor liar says, dollar cost averaging, to be in the spot world than in the leveraged world. If you're going to be in leveraged investments, you really got to know what the F you're doing, and you got to stay on it, and you got to pay attention to it. Debbie in Des Moines, Tex in Texas, George in Georgia, Jake in Jacksonville, right? Mel in Miami, all the regular everyday people like you and me, honestly. And I know more about this than most of the everyday people do. I'm not playing around a lot with futures and options and leverage because it requires a dedication that I don't have time to do. Got it? Right? So what they're going to do, they're going to release the freaking complicated, hard to understand, risky one for their highfalutin buddies who can coordinate legally, because they pass a law that said they can, and manipulate the price, forcing it up and down, creating excessive volatility. And they'll drag their feet as long as possible before they let Deborah and Tex and George and Fred in with that retirement money. And by the time they do, they will lose control of their ability to keep pushing the ball down. And the overall realization, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be any more. It is a fixed supply. No, I'm sorry, Bill that's out there still heckling me. You can't hack it. It's never been hacked. It's not happening. And you'll be looking at 6-figure Bitcoin. And then they'll finally say, well, now it's safe for you, Deborah, Fred, Tex, Peter, etc. Now you can have your spot account. And they're going to use, this is the real fuckery here. If you haven't snapped to it yet, they're going to use all this institutionalized money that can now be poured into the futures market to manipulate wild swings of up and down, to accumulate as much of it as they can for themselves at suppressed prices, because as they're using the institutional money that can only get there through the ETF to push down, they'll be using the other money they can do whatever the fuck they want with to accumulate on the outside. That's what's going to happen in the very near future. And again, I'm 95% based on I do have some, a little bit here and there of some what you would call insider information, et cetera. There's some public information that backs this up. If you go look for it, you'll find it, that what they really want to do and what the SEC is signaling they're going to do, right? A lot of times they signal their intentions, right, for the peripheral billionaire that's not quite on the inside. Hey, we want you to know what's going on too. All right. At least we want your financial advisor who's actually an advisor versus a financial liar, like the guy that you have work for you at Amex, right? That just tells you, don't worry about it, right? They want them to know so they can plan accordingly because they want the coordinated effort. If you think these people, when they have these big meetings and shit, they get together and play canasta or something, you're the average American, and I really recommend that you start filtering the freaking fluoride out of your water, okay? This is all coordinated. None of this happens in a vacuum. None of this happens without everybody kind of, at least, maybe they don't all agree, but they all come to a consensus. Like, we all got as much as we can of what we want. Now we're going to go forward and do this. And that's what they're going to do. That's exactly what they're going to do to you guys. Now, the good news, if you're holding Bitcoin, you might get a little roller coaster sick in the next few months toward the end of the year, but you know you're heading for that real big peak. And then the roller coaster doesn't really drop much after that one. And that's what the Bitcoin roller coaster is like. For those of y'all that are new to this, it's this up and down, up and down, up and down, but it kind of tears up like locks in a canal lock system. We find these new floors, and then we do this with that new floor. And every once in a while, woo! I made a meme recently, and it was a lady and a kid on a roller coaster, and they're holding hands, and the little kid is just freaked out. He looks like he's about to lose his lunch. He's like, ah! And the lady's just grinning and happy. And I'm like, the lady I put bought Bitcoin in 2014, and I put the links to the little kid bought Bitcoin in 2021. Which we call plebs, new entries into the world of Bitcoin and crypto. And if you bought Bitcoin at $64,000 at the top of the market this year, especially if you bought a lot of it, or I think some people, even a little bit of it, you're not feeling real good about this right now. Well, get your Dramamine, folks. We need like Bitcoin Dramamine for what's about to come. You know that pirate ship that rocks back and forth that they have at the carnivals? It's like, woof, woof. Well, what's coming next is to take that pirate ship and put it on like a giant roller coaster. So it's doing this, and it's also at the same time going through a roller coaster. I think I'd pay to be on that ride. So the good news is if you've got your skin in the game right now, if you can just pop a Dramamine and back off and not be tempted to bail out at the wrong time, you're well positioned. If you're not in the game, somewhere in this is going to be what I'm going to refer to right now. Maybe I'll coin this phrase. Somebody will probably rip it off. The grand decoupling. There will be a point where this separates and we go from it's speculative, it's highly risky, blah, 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 to, well, everyone knows that the best place to store your wealth is in Bitcoin. Even if you're going to be in the crypto space and all the wonderful things in the crypto space are so great, and Algorand this and Cardano that and Cosmos this and Ethereum that, it's all going to be buckled up at the core with Bitcoin. And this is what people meant when they keep saying Bitcoin is digital gold. If you look back before we went into full fractional reserve banking and pure fiat, for that 5,000 years that gold was money, we act as though it was just like everybody walking around handing gold and forth back. There were all types of financial payment investing systems. There were all types of, most of the United States, when we think about it being colonized and settled by pilgrims and shit, bullshit, it was settled by corporations. It was settled by companies that came here to do things like cut trees down and sell them back to the king for ships. But what fueled that? What was the backing commodity in all of it? Gold. That's your new gold if you understand it that way and you don't try to make a direct comparison, gold to Bitcoin. I want you to think about it this way as well. This whole shit about how long it takes Bitcoin to make a transaction, what a transaction fee, it's all nonsense. You know what's a terrible payment system? The United States dollar. The United States dollar, I'm not talking about fiat money here. I'm just saying, if you have a dollar, it's a terrible payment system. You have to carry it around. You have to risk losing it. If you buy something that costs less than $1, they have to give you this shit called change. If you have $10, you might get like 2 ones and some weird quarter things and a penny in change. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. And electronically, it doesn't do anything. But Visa works just fine. PayPal works just fine. Square works just fine. The payment rails use the central commodity of the dollar and enable commerce. Welcome to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was never supposed to really be something that was going to be always exchanged directly. It had to be able to. People talk about this shit like, what does Satoshi want? Like Satoshi some kind of freaking prophet, and we all have to bow down and kiss his invisible ass or something. And what he wanted was the most important thing in the world. But if you read all of the stuff around the development of Bitcoin, Satoshi was like, this is what we can do. Technology will do the rest. Technology will do the rest. So things like Lightning, etc., things like liquid Bitcoin, wrapped Bitcoin, there's so much coming. And then that's going to spread out into the rest of the crypto ecosystem. And yes, 90% of it is worthless, pump and dump garbage. But 10% of 12,000 projects, right? That's 1,200 valid projects. And you got big winners and little winners in that group. But without the core, without the sound money in the center. And that's why the fuckery is going to happen with it first. They all want as much of it as they can get now because we front ran them for so long, and they're trying to make sure that last capability, all the money that Mary in Massachusetts and Phil in Philadelphia and Ned in New Jersey have saved up in their little nest egg, doesn't get a crack at it before they do. That's what's going on. And if you doubt me, just watch in the next 60 days. I think it'll become abundantly clear. I'll be back next week with another 4 episodes next week of Miyagi Mornings instead of 3. All right, guys, I will hang with you a little bit here. I do got to get on the rest of the day. It's 11:30 now. Got to get the Expert Council show done. Got to get the Miyagi Mornings recap done. But if anybody's got something, I don't really get that quote if it's for me or for somebody else in the chat. CLM says, I have a gold watch and now I'm authority on precious metals. Psst, clown. If you want to clarify who that's for, you can clarify it for me, and I'll tell you what a dumbass you are. Or you can tell me what the dumbass you were talking to in response to it, because I'm not sure. Well, if you're talking to Hayes and calling him a clown, then you're a clown. You're not the CLM dude. You're not the guy that ran away when you were going to tell me how stupid I was, and I offered to bring you into my chat and let you talk to everybody a couple months ago, are you? I'm not saying you are. I'm just wondering if that's you. Hay says, I have nothing much to say. I'm not a fan of ETFs, but I can't make them go away. ETFs, the problem with condemning an ETF as a thing, dude, is everything in the world has an application. So there are plenty of people that say, I don't need a fucking ETF. Fuck that shit. That's bullshit. I'll self-custody my Bitcoin. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? Jack's a good ant. Jack saves money. Jack has a lot of money that's already in these tax-deferred vehicles like Roth IRAs. And Jack would like to take his fucking Bitcoin and be able to trade it for profit inside that investment vehicle without those bastards getting their grubby little hands on my money. Now, I can do that with an ETF really easily, including setting spot orders, limit orders, sell orders. I can say I want to automatically sell 10% of this when this price is effectively hit, and I want to immediately buy it back when it drops to here. I can't do that in an IRA with self-custody Bitcoin in a way that's convenient and doesn't put me at risk of making one mistake in my paperwork to the IRS where they fry my whole ass and everything I have. So, CLM, you can be you know what you're being? You're being kind of a puffy bitch right now, but do it if you want to. I don't care. Talk to whoever you want. I'm not listening. Anyway, I can't do that. And I'm actually kind of explaining to him where he's wrong while you're puffing up. Anyway, I can't do that there. So the vehicle that is the ETF, the other side of the ETF is, let's say you don't ever touch it. If you hold Bitcoin and you want it to be worth lots of money, you're absolutely flaming stupid if you don't think an ETF's a good idea. So all the other people can get access to it and I know you are, Hayes, and put pressure on the price. And you have to think about what it means. These ETFs no one is going to be like, you know what? Now that I can buy with an ETF, I'm going to stop buying Bitcoin in my Bittrex account, and I'm going to go buy it in my, Edward Jones account. if it's not tax deferred. The only thing that's really going to open up, again, is going to be long-term investment. This is what people don't get about this. It's selling out, or it's not selling out. Bitcoin's its own thing. There's no way to sell out Bitcoin. It is. It's like saying you're going to sell out gold, right? So you got this thing that's inherently limited in quantity. And every time there's enough money, let's say this knife is a Bitcoin, for one person or one entity to buy that Bitcoin and do it in a way where they say, this is not going to be sold anytime soon, and it goes away, there's one less. Now think of the type of money that comes into this. You're talking about people, your guy that's 68 and he's working a couple extra years because he had a bad year back in 2008 or whatever, and his financial advisor didn't protect him. And he's just about to retire. He's not going to put his money in Bitcoin, right? He's gonna be setting up withdrawals in a couple of years. The people that are going to do this are people that are like late Gen X, early Gen X, late millennials. That's where most of the money is that's going to be available to do this with. So you're looking at people from anywhere from 20, right, to I'd say 15 out to 30 years to retirement age. That's what you're looking at there for that block of money. And then you're looking at billions of dollars coming for that little piece and grabbing it, right? And taking it off. CLM, I didn't see the whole thing. Chill out, dude. Anyway, grabbing that piece and putting it away. You're talking about long-term hodling on steroids. And then we're going to have eventually an entire system where this commodity that's been put away never needs to be sold to earn a yield. It will be borrowed against and loaned. Okay? So now it's already in a tax-deferred account, or it's already a tax-exempt account in the case of a Roth. You can't tax it ever no matter what. But now what I'll be able to do is inside that Roth IRA, I will be able to loan out my Bitcoin, earn the yield inside the account, take last year's yields and distribute it under my mandatory distributions out of that account, pay no tax on it. I'm spending dollars. My Bitcoin balance has not gone down by one Satoshi. And so then you have to ask yourself, why would I ever sell that Bitcoin? If I can do that with it, why would I ever sell it? And the answer is I wouldn't. And that's what this move is going to do. They have figured out not just to co-opt it. These people are not Bitcoin maximalists the way we see the toxic maximalists attacking each other on Twitter, right? That's not what they are. But they do know it is the one. It is the Neo, right? It is the one. And it will be the thing that makes the entire new economy work for as long as anybody here is going to be alive. You got me? And this is moving that money into that station for at least a human lifetime, if not more, because my plan is to get as much of my wealth into that type of status as possible. And then to put it, when it becomes inherited, it will actually be overheld and inherited by a trust that will make it that way forever. And I'm thinking, what will this do for the great-grandchildren I'll have someday that I may never meet? And this is the beauty of Bitcoin. It's bringing something back to our people. And when I say our people, I mean the people of the world that we lost when Fiat came. When we got into a world where you had a dollar today that was worth 98 cents by the end of the year, we started thinking about now. We stopped thinking about next year. We stopped thinking, and we did think about next year, next decade. We thought about it for who? Us. People save for retirement. And this is the honest to God thing that financial liars, notice that's what I call them, are teaching. And they're teaching lies because they were taught lies. And I want to, anybody here in the comments, tell me if you've heard this version of your coaching from your financial liar or somebody that came into your work and talked about your 401k. You want to save enough money to be able to live on that money plus your Social Security until you die. They actually work it out that way. Like, you're in pretty good health. Let's plan on the offside. You're going to live to be 95 years old. Yep, there's enough money for you to live to be 95 and fucking die. You're good. What fucked up planet do we live on where people actually pay somebody to tell them that level of bullshit? You know what that means? It means fuck your kids, fuck your grandkids, fuck your great-grandkids. They're on their own. They can work the same formula while we fuck the world up and make it harder for each generation to be able to do that thing that was relatively easy to do 50 years ago. It's a lot harder to do now, but you've been in the game 30 years or 40 years, so you can do it. And fuck them if they can't. Survival of the fittest. It's not survival of the fittest. It's extraction by the weak, pussified, gentrified elite through the ability to print currency on demand and suck value so that when your grandkid finally gets a fucking job and minimum wage is $40 an hour, but $40 buys a hot dog and a fucking Coke, they can go, still, that's too much for that fucker to have. Fuck him. Let's print some more money. We'll suck that shit out. And then no one thinks about 100 years from today anymore. No. We're going to think about tomorrow, maybe. Spend the money now. YOLO. You only live once. Fuck it. Go look at the buildings. Anybody here ever been to New York City? And I'm not talking about the new skyscrapers, the glass giants and shit. You ever walk down some of those streets, just get one or two off the main drag? See some of the things like the churches and cathedrals that we built in the 1800s? Do you ever stand there and look at the artistry and the beauty and think about what it took to build that building? Do you know why that building looks the way it does? I give you a one-word answer. It won't seem to make any sense unless you've really been paying attention to what I'm saying. Gold. It looks that way because gold. Because when you're using hard money that doesn't devalue over time, you build things that last. Because I want today, it costs me less to build this today than it will cost me to build it tomorrow. Which seems completely weird, right? It seems completely weird because as the value of money goes down, right? Yeah. But when you get into a position where you control the printing press, right? It'll cost me more to build it today than it will tomorrow. Because I can just print more. So screw it. What do I get out of it? How do I stay in office for one more term? How do I stay in this position as CEO long enough to make the full value of my golden parachute when I go be somebody else's CEO? That is the world that we live in today. And we live in that world specifically because of what we consider money. An on-demand, devalued piece of crap we call the dollar. We can devalue that sucker, it seems, for infinity. And eventually it'll all crash, and we all know it, and they don't care. Because they use the toilet paper to acquire the value-driven commodities to the point that when it's on the verge of total collapse, if you've managed to get any of it for yourself, you have to sell for them. Anybody remember It's a Wonderful Life we watch around Christmas, Jimmy Stewart? It's that on steroids. And that's Fiat eliminates, Scott Mack says, Fiat eliminates 7-generation thinking. Boy, I think I want to make a t-shirt. Bitcoin, bringing back 7-generational thinking. Yeah. Let's build some citadels, boys and girls. I'm going to let you go. I hope you enjoyed that one. Anybody that I was kind of hard on today, just remember, I only see what you're throwing out with 1 or 2 comments. If they're for me, put them in all caps next time. Take care, guys. I will catch up with you next week. And the wife is going away this weekend. So maybe I'll do something on Saturday live stream. I don't know what. It won't be a Miyagi. Maybe it'll just be hangout, maybe an AMA. We'll see. With that, let's say goodbye for the day.